So then we start taking a look at why don't more people take ownership? Because we look at this crazy thing called failure. And I think this is an absolute crazy thing that they'll turn around and tell you, if you want to write the number down, it's insane. 99% of failures come from people who make excuses. Why do we spend so much time trying to fix excuse makers? Change their mindset. If they don't change their mindset, then either you hired the wrong person or you're not a good leader on changing mindsets. Again, whose fault is your team? Whose? Yours. So you got to take ownership too. So excuse making is deadly. It is by far probably one of the greatest weaknesses flat across organizations I've ever seen. Excuse making and lack of accountability. Because I will tell you, almost everyone assumes accountability means I'm doing something wrong and I'm not going to get beaten. The reality is, if this is our plan, you got to go right to the no guts, no gain. You can go right to the goal setting. You can go right to dream book. You can go right into it's a cookbook, all these different areas. All has the same 3 or 4 steps. Identify, create, execute, and predict, right? You have these things. So when you take a look at your goals, you've got to write your goals down. Yeah, you got to have a plan to do it, but there's a decision that has to be made. When you do your goals, the decision that you have to make is, and by the way, if you're in management, this decision should be a strip line. You should take it away from people. You sure you really want to do this? You sure you want to make that much money? You want to test commitment? You take it away. You know that. So when people turn in and they say, hey, this is where I want to go, we have to make sure that they have the fortitude and the ability to drive that stuff. And most of us, if we don't get it, we have excuses. So failure is a very interesting thing. And you heard Bill yesterday. Bill turned and said failure is nothing more than getting an outcome that's different than what you were hoping for. No less, no more. So if you don't have that written down, please write it down. It should be in your office. It should be in huge fonts areas. It is something you have to drill in your team. Failure is not a bad thing. Failure is a good thing because it gives us an outcome that was different than what we expected. But if you beat your people up that failure is bad, they're never going to want to take risks. How many times have you ever heard you got to fail yourself to succeed? Yet, interesting, Amy, this individual from New York Times, wrote an article, and I thought this was a great one-liner, so I took it and I threw it up here. Her research says that in the last 20 years, an action has converted to an identity. When we fail at an action. Yet how do we feel about it? We feel like a failure. You got to write this stuff down, right? I don't have that many good things. This could be one of them, right? You ask my wife, she tells you I'm very good at a lot of stuff. So when you look at it, we have to ask ourselves, when you do something, I did or said something I was supposed to, or I didn't do, or I did something I was supposed to. That's ownership. But when you look at it, either you did or you didn't do something, that's the failure. Not, I am a failure. You failed at an action, not an identity. And even crazier, if we look at an at-leaster and a winner, you all know IR, right? Winners, at-leasters. There's a lot of differences between the two psychologically. But one of the major differences is how they perceive failure. If you ask a winner, you like failure? No. Feel good? What? No. So for everybody, we don't like failure. For everybody, it still hurts, still burns, I got it. But a major difference between an at-leaster and a winner is an at-leaster is afraid of failure. On your notes, please. Afraid of it. They are afraid of failure. And the reason they're afraid of failure is they've lost this translation, which is an action to an identity. I failed at making a phone call, therefore I'm a loser. How does you failing at a phone call make you a loser? Do you know your 7 steps, the cold call? Do you have your opening done? Do you have your 30-second commercial done? Do you have your hook questions done? You ready for the first and second, third rebuttal? You ready for this? Do you own it? If you don't own it, how do you think of it? You failed at the action. And here's something even crazier. If you want to write down your notes, it's psychology based in terms of success and failures. When we look at success, many of us will turn around and say, I'm successful because I'm better than the other person. I'm successful because I did things the average person didn't do, so therefore I am better. It is what it is. Unfortunately, when we think that way, we think we're better when we're successful, how do we feel when we're not? Feel lousy. So one of the things you may want to take a look at your notes. Actions and identities. You are successful because you chose to do your behavior. You are successful because you chose to get outside your comfort zone. You are successful because you chose to ask tough questions. You are successful because you chose to get critical in the pain funnel. How many of you have a tough time going from hurt, sick, and critical? You can do hurt pretty well, but the deeper you get in the pain funnel, the more uncomfortable you get. Any of you? I was there. So the success is because you do your job, and the outcome is success. Same thing happens when it doesn't work out. You didn't do your job, and you got an outcome.